Are you familiar with FBI Special Agents Kyle Seraphin?
I'm familiar with the name.
Is that yes?
I'm familiar with the name. Familiar with the name. Familiar with the name.
Let's bring in Kyle Seraphin. He's the FBI whistleblower who helped expose government censorship of our First Amendment rights.
Now, we only have this memo because a recently suspended FBI agent called Kyle Seraphin brought it to the public. And we're grateful that he did. Kyle, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
He's the host of something that strangely is called the Kyle Seraphin Show.
Kyle Seraphin, I can't thank you enough for speaking out. I knew you guys were out there, and I knew it was just a matter of time, but you got a lot of guts putting your face and your name to this. You're doing a service on behalf of the American people, and from the bottom of my cracked and broken heart sometimes, thank you very much.
Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Well, hello, my friends. Welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show. Today is Tuesday. It is September the 17th, and we are rolling. I hope you guys are joining us here on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin, but you can also do it on X. You can do it on YouTube, and more of you are doing that. And you can also join us and support our program over at Locals. You guys might be our best sponsor. You're my favorite sponsor. It's KyleSeraphin.com. That's how you go to the website. You don't have to watch the show over there, by the way. I'm just saying join the community. If you guys do so, you're going to be able to see some stuff that's behind a paywall. You're going to have access to the phone number for our call-in shows that we do on Thursday nights. And you support us and keep us independent so that we can bring you things that nobody else is going to talk about. And one of those reasons is because nobody else actually knows this in the space. I've looked. There aren't very many other former FBI agents that worked in the spaces that I did that are going to talk about the things that we're going to talk about today. And they don't really understand the constitutional threat that the FBI is. So we've got a viral video that ran all over social media. A guy named Jeremy Kaufman, who was apparently a representative or worked with the Libertarian Party in New Hampshire. I'm pretty sure I met him at PorkFest last year when I was there with Vivek. But we're going to cover it. We're going to cover the most important ABCD. Always be closing the door. But also, the reason why what these guys were doing was tyrannical. I actually got some pushback, not pushback, let's just say questions. Do we really want to go down this road? Do we really want to name and shame FBI agents who are the rank and file that are just doing their job? By the way, we don't call them rank and file, we call them brick agents. Brick agents are people that work on the bricks. That means they walk around and they ask questions. They knock on your door. And theoretically, they're supposed to obey the Constitution, and they're supposed to understand that oath means something and that they are supposed to abide by the Bill of Rights and acknowledge it. But they don't. We keep seeing it. One of my whistleblower disclosures was specifically about the counterterrorism programs and the way that they're used and the way that they are weaponized about against the American people, against your First Amendment liberties. Your First Amendment liberties are granted by God, and they are acknowledged by the federal government saying that they have no right to infringe upon it. And they do it regularly through a system called eGuardian. They do it through all these intelligence investigations that require no underlying crime for them to get out there and talk to you. So we're going to touch on all that. We're going to start off a little bit more with some stuff about the would-be assassin or the attempted assassination that happened at the golf course on Sunday with Donald Trump. Before we do, let's do a quick read for our number one sponsor outside of you all, and that is our friends over at Catholic Vote. I am drinking from their coffee mug. I've got a coffee mug joke a little bit later on today. CatholicVote.org is how you go and get the loop, and you should. They've got a new ad that they're releasing that is going to slam the Harris-Walz campaign about their position on transgenderism, particularly in children. If you guys want to support them and the message that they're putting across the entire United States, trying to get Catholics to get out and vote and move the needle for Donald Trump, you can do so at CatholicVote.org. Sign up for the loop. Get the news. Follow them on social media at Catholic Vote. Follow them on YouTube at Catholic Vote and also on Rumble. I'm going to take a little sip of that coffee. Faith, family, and freedom. The number one values that these guys are out there fighting for. You don't have to be a Roman Catholic to support my friends at Catholic Vote. They're not going to sit there and try to convert you per se. What they're trying to do is align values and voters for the proper choice. We're going to talk a little more about that today as well. Let's get started with this little piece. This one comes from, who is this? What news source is this? This is Time, who is dubious at best. Time magazine and their website was talking about what we know about the suspect charged in the Trump second assassination attempt, apparent assassination attempt. They are mirroring the words of the FBI special agent in charge in Miami. More on him later. But this is Ryan Routh, who we talked about the other day. Kind of a weird looking dude. Kind of a really strange animal because there's an awful lot of news footage. If you were to go out and search for me before you heard my name on Dan Bongino, you'd find that I gave 0 television interviews, ever. I didn't do any radio interviews that I'm aware. Actually, I did a couple when I was in college, and they were broadcast somewhere in like 2000, 2001. I had a small eBay business reselling cameras. It didn't go anywhere. There wasn't a lot of profit. But we talked about camera technology and what eBay does and how sellers worked. That was 23 years ago. That's the only media that you would have found me on. This guy's all over the place in all these really weird places. He was interviewed by Newsweek, which we showed you the other day in Romanian version of Newsweek, in Ukraine. He had blue hair and had kind of this like bizarre hypnotic stare, looking forward, not making a lot of sense, and talking about things about how you have to be really kind and courteous to be a world leader. I don't know when that's been true in American history, but apparently it was. I know a lot of you guys kept calling this a BlackRock commercial. My understanding was the so-called BlackRock commercial was actually an Azov battalion recruiting video. He's standing there wrapped in an American flag. Very weird, the kind of people that wrap themselves in American flags. A 56-year-old non-veteran guy from North Carolina who drives a Porsche in Hawaii and apparently can fly all over the world despite some charges that go back to like 2002. It was a WMD charge, but it was because he possessed an illegal machine gun. So apparently state charges there. But a felon, someone who shouldn't have owned the gun, which is going to get into the actual charges against him, and I do want to do those. Let's play this quick little video of him talking to a guy, it looks like in a train station maybe, and I can't tell if this is in Ukraine or if it's one of the halfway spots as he's en route to go to Ukraine to recruit people because he took it upon himself like a complete weirdo. That doesn't mean, by the way, that it doesn't mean that he's an asset for the federal government, but I wouldn't rule it out. The reason that you might say that it's unlikely is because he's got a lot of these strange popped up media appearances. He seems like an attention-seeking guy. And that's not really what you want in an asset that's going to move people along, unless you're running a very different kind of op. I can't rule it in or out. I'm just saying it's not conclusive. And so all these people saying, obviously he works for the CIA, it's not obvious to me. There's a very decent chance that he was crossed over by law enforcement. The fact that he has those felony charges in the background and he's gotten himself in trouble, that does leave you on law enforcement radar so that people can try to squeeze you. So the possibility of him working on behalf of some part of the intelligence apparatus is there. And of course, you guys are accurately saying it in the chat. How did he pay for all this stuff? It's expensive to fly all around the world. It's expensive to move to Hawaii and have a business that doesn't work and doesn't do anything and drive a Porsche and have a stupid outrigger canoe like we showed you yesterday. So I don't know. I'm not prepared to rule one thing in or another, but what I will do is show you this video, and he's an odd duck. That also becomes kind of a liability, just for what it's worth. When you're trying to recruit people, yes, you oftentimes in law enforcement have to deal with odd ducks and people that are non-perfect recruiting subjects, but if you're trying to do intelligence operations, you might want someone that's a little bit more reliable, a little less nutty. Just weighing it on both sides here, I just don't have a strong feeling yet. But you guys might, and here he is.
All right, so we're here with a gentleman I met from Hawaii.
Yes, sir.
Ryan. His name's Ryan.
Yeah.
And you got here, what, 2 days ago? This morning. You got here this morning.
Yeah.
And you want to tell the people that are watching this why you came from home?
Yeah, I came to represent the USA. So, I'm somewhat disappointed in the international civilian response to this crisis. I had anticipated that thousands of civilians from every country around the world would have flocked here to support the Ukrainians as civilians, to stand arm in arm with them. But it seems like a handful of people have shown up.
All right, so the audio obviously is pretty terrible. Those people don't know how to use either a shotgun mic or use like actual voice isolating microphones. But he said he's really disappointed that the civilian response was not thousands and thousands of people flooding into Ukraine to fight. Why would that be the case? This leans more towards mental illness for me. That is not Like, look, we saw the Ukrainian war conflict kick out. There's conflicts that kick off all over the place, all over the world. Some that are actually really pretty clear about right and wrong. I don't see people flooding to join the Foreign Legion of that country. This has always seemed like an op to me. The whole Ukraine war and the support of it, the fact that people were putting emojis in their bios, the fact that one of the companies that I worked through, this company Restream that we use to expand our digital footprint when we share our stream, like their logo is still a Ukrainian flag. The fact that people were having the Ukrainian president who supposedly was under threat of death. Do you remember this? Do you remember early on? What was that in early 2022? Apparently there were death squads, like there were Russian death squads stalking the president of Ukraine, and they were going to kill him at any moment. At least that's what we were told. And so he was running around, and that's why he had to wear that absolutely ridiculous, like, military uniform. He was wearing a commando sweater instead of a suit. It's why we made one of the t-shirts that we have actually over at the Suspendables merch store. If you guys haven't seen it, you can go to the-suspendables.com, use the promo code Kyle, save yourself 10% if you want. But Garrett and I and Steve came up with this like goofy idea of the Zelensky special. It's the Z special t-shirt. And why? It's because he had the Ukrainian trident here on this t-shirt or this combat sweater. And then he's out there speaking to our members of Congress. And he's not under threat of death. Like, have we just given up on that? He's out there, his wife's buying Bugattis. I'm just saying, it all seemed like a completely goofy op. And the op that's being run by the political left and by the leftist media right now is that he is a big Trump supporter and he got disillusioned, and that's why he wants to kill Donald Trump, because Donald Trump didn't support his war causes. If you are so malleable in your head that you've gone from Donald Trump is my guy to Vivek is my guy and Nikki Haley is my guy because I really love wars, right? Like, he's talking about peace and how people have to be nice to each other all over the world. And then his next step is that he wants to back someone like neocons Nikki Haley. The Vivek thing I don't get at all, because Vivek has actually been sort of like mini Trump and has been really reasonable. I know a lot of you guys don't trust him, but when I met him, he's sharp. He's really smart. He says the right things. He's a lot like J.D. Vance. He's young. He's quick. He has this massive grasp of what's supposed to be there. He understands what the Constitution is. I don't know. It's not a mutually exclusive category to be completely nuts and to work on behalf of these government agencies. But it is a cautionary moment. If you're a handler, if you have to handle people, when you have difficult sources, they are the bane of your existence. Sources that want to pick up the phone and call you all day and all night. They want to report crazy things. They need you to get them out of trouble. They're dropping names and saying, hey, I work. Like, you think this guy wouldn't have been dropping that on people? Hey, I work for the CIA, and so you shouldn't screw with me. That kind of stuff. They do. That's what sources do. They name drop. They try to get themselves out of trouble because they're always getting into trouble. The difficult sources are the worst. The best sources are the ones that are there for patriotic reasons. They don't need any money, and they're independently like focused on the mission set, and they brought the issue to you. I had some of them. They're really nice. It's like, I'll buy you a coffee, and they feel bad about you spending money on a coffee. Those people are pretty good. But all of this stuff, especially this guy, his connection to Ukraine and his fascination with it, it like locked me in on one thing. What is the purpose of bringing this guy forward? And why is he so fixated on this? Why did he decide to go pull the trigger? And then I saw this morning. This is the front page of CNN's politics page. What you're seeing, what is that? Is that a Mark 19? One of you guys have to be, I never shot one of these things. He's got a like what looks like otherwise a crew serve weapon. It's on a tripod, and it looks like it's shooting like grenades. It's a Ukrainian marked flagged soldier. Someone tell me what that is when you guys see. It's a Ukrainian service member using American military equipment. And what it says is that the U.S. military packages for Ukraine have been smaller in recent months as the stockpiles of weapons and equipment that the Pentagon is willing to send to Ukraine has dwindled. Its own inventory has dwindled. We're talking about the United States is running out of equipment to send over to Ukraine. It's actually hurting our readiness. Now, part of that is because they want to spend more money on new things and new toys, so they use the old. But we were hearing this early on from special forces groups, from Ranger Battalion guys, stating that they were getting rid of their readiness capabilities, that they were actually deteriorating U.S. readiness to aid Ukraine. I love that like 5 of you guys have piped in and said, yes, it's a Mark 19. Good. At least my instinct on that is correct. I never shot one of those. I'd like to. We're still spending billions and billions of dollars in the Ukrainian conflict, but CNN seems really worried, and they have 2 people writing about it, that the U.S. aid packages are shrinking. And it's also hurting the Pentagon stockpiles, and the Pentagon's starting to go like, oh God, well, we have better hold on to some things. We're starting to run out. So is this just another opportunity for them to highlight the fact that the United States is dropping some of the ridiculous support that we've had? And that's what's on the ballot? Because we keep hearing about this kind of stuff. It is what's on the ballot that matters to them. They want to know, is there going to be more support for their weird op that the media went all in on? I think it is. I think it's a piece of it. And I think that CNN gives up the game sometimes. That's why I like going to their website. First, it's literally where I start every day. But I usually don't start on the politics page. I start on their main page. This just happened to pop up because I had a bookmark on it. And when I did, the first thing telling me that they're running out of the equipment. And then, by the way, if you guys haven't been hearing, the Biden administration has been discussing whether or not they would support the use of Western, which is probably European in this case, NATO-based long-range missiles going directly into Europe, going directly into Russia, rather. So we're talking about people that want to start sending U.S.-funded NATO, Western-funded NATO missiles into the actual heart of Russia, not just at the conflict zone that's in the border skirmish. We're talking about kicking off a full-on new war. If young people don't get it, I actually saw Charlie Kirk talking the other day to a college student, and he said, I'll give you 3 things. Do you want to be a home buyer? Do you want to be a homeowner? As you graduate college, is that something that you aspire to? If so, Donald Trump is your guy. I guess that makes sense to me. The second thing they talked about was, do you want to be engaged in a new conflict? Do you want to go to war? Or are you interested in peace? If you're interested in peace, Donald Trump's record is bar none better than the other 2. You had nothing but wars from basically Bush Cheney all the way on. And interesting enough, Cheney has endorsed Kamala Harris. So these things should be real simple. How can you say someone that they used to refer to as Satan? We played a really good montage the other day, that he was referred to as Satan, or he was called the Dark Lord or the Sith Master and all these other kind of things, Darth Vader type. And he endorsed your girl Kamala? Doesn't that give people on the left pause? So that's a big piece of it. And then the second is that we have not been listening to nonstop Donald Trump was almost killed blanketing the airways for the last 65 days. And it happened again. And I cannot fathom that if you were to do the mirror test, that's where you hold up the mirror and you say, well, if it's good for one, it's good for the other. A woman does something, she puts her hand on my shoulder when I'm at work and says, that's a nice shirt, you should wear it more often. If a man did that, we know that the man would lose his job and he would not have that career anymore. That's an actual example, by the way, from one of my crappy FBI supervisors. If the political left saw someone go after the Black Jesus Barack Obama, if somebody had landed a kayak with a weapon system on the shores of Martha's Vineyard and pulled up to their beach house, we would be hearing about it forever. I've got kind of a fun little, like a light little moment before we pivot into the sort of the Donald Trump thing. And I will touch briefly on this Jeffrey Veltri. I went on Sarah Gonzalez's program, who works for The Blaze. And Sarah is kind of like the Suspendables spirit animal. She's like as wild as all the ideas that we would have, that we know that we have to be more accountable and we have to be a little bit more sane. She's always out there like kind of pushing the bar. She's fantastic. She's super fun in real life. She's very funny. And she wrote to me on Twitter the other day and said, hey friend, can you come on my show? And the answer is yes. So I played a little amusing, I don't know. It amused me. Maybe it'll amuse you. If you guys are watching this, you'll be able to see the coffee mug sneak in. But I stole one of their coffee mugs when I was up there with Steve Baker. I just had to do it. It was in the room and nobody else was there, and I'd used it, and it's not like they were going to wash it and give it back out again. So I just took one of their coffee mugs and I snuck it onto her program yesterday. Like a pro, I gave her a merch pitch. So I'm going to play you this little clip from that the other day, and then we're going to pivot into this Donald Trump thing because I made this analogy there as well.
Who this Jeffrey Veltri is. Kyle, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Oh my gosh, I saw the cup.
I stole your mug.
I love it.
I had to put it up here. Yeah, Jeffrey Veltri, interesting character, right? So he's the special agent in charge of the Miami field office. I was talking to somebody out of Miami today and got the kind of the the inside scoop that most of the people that work there tend to be pretty pro-Trump. And then I wrote back and I said, except your SAC, the special agent in charge. And he wrote the same thing at the same time because it's a well-known fact. Veltri is a Trump hater, was a Trump hater, and actually had to be counseled prior to taking that job to take down all of his social media posts that were inflammatory rhetoric against Donald Trump.
And so, so you're not going to call me crazy on this one, right?
No, it's too. Look, if this had happened to Obama one time, we'd still be hearing about it, and we'd be hearing about it for another year. And if somebody had taken a kayak up to the beach at Martha's Vineyard, we'd be hearing about how kayaks are the new tool of white supremacy. I'm fairly confident of that. We haven't heard anything. We heard this is the second assassination attempt in 65 days. It's
insane.
We're in all uncharted waters. This is where the monsters live on the old maps. And so I don't know what's going to happen, and I don't know what it means, but I fear for the next 50 days or so as we head into November. I just don't see anybody on the other side ready to relinquish power. And they're normalizing this. And I saw people blaming Donald Trump for someone trying to assassinate him. So we're living in the upside down. There's no question about it. So you're not crazy.
Okay, good.
I'm joining you.
Okay, good. Thank you, Kyle. Yes, I finally got him over here. All right. Thank you. Kyle Seraphin, of course, host of the Kyle Seraphin Show, drinking from the most fantastic mug I think I've ever seen in my life. There it is. It's pretty, Sarah Gonzalez
pretty good
Unfiltered.
looking.
Yeah, I love it. All right, Kyle, thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon.
So there you go. Tactically acquired asset, an acquisition when nobody else was paying attention. Yeah, do what you got to do. Anyhow, the idea that we are not nonstop, wall-to-wall talking about Donald Trump and the first assassination attempt, where a bullet actually hit his personage and people died in the background. Like, how crazy is that? And it's even crazier to think that it's his fault. That's the pitch. That's CNN's pitch. It's several other news agencies have gone out there and done it. Lester Holt has gone on NBC and said the same thing. Donald Trump pivots from apparent, this is the FBI's term, second apparent assassination attempt to more incendiary claims. The analysis piece by Stephen Collinson. And there it is. This was actually the lead on their page. Trump pivots to more incendiary claims. Let me just read a specific little quote that I threw on the screen because it's worth it. This is Donald Trump's, apparently his fault. It's his own fault because he's so incendiary and he's such a jerk. And this is going to lead us to the part where we talk about threats and the FBI. So this is a good little segue to it. He told Fox News Digital on Monday without evidence that the alleged would-be shooter, quote, believed the rhetoric of Biden and Harris, and he acted on it. And Trump went on saying, their rhetoric is causing me to be shot at. And when I'm the one who's going to save this country, and they're the ones who are destroying the country, both from the inside and from out. I think I just ad-libbed a little bit there. Okay. So Donald Trump said that they have inflammatory rhetoric and they're the problem. And that's his fault. And that's why he's getting shot at. I heard something that was a little bit more. Let's be like a little bit more poignant. Yesterday, we talked about babies and the culture of death and the fact that if you're okay with killing infants in the womb, then you're probably okay with killing off a 78-year-old man or 79-year-old man. You wouldn't mind, would you? I mean, babies are completely innocent. They've never done anything wrong to anybody. They don't have the ability to. They're being carried by their mothers. So, Donald Trump, he's upset lots of people. You'd totally be okay with that if you live in this sort of crazy death cult. It's hard to grasp until you start thinking about what Don Jr. put out on social media the other day. He said it's really hard for me to explain to my 5-year-old children that someone keeps trying to kill their grandfather because of the words that he said, because they don't like him. So let's play some of those words. All right. Dan Goldman, known piece of garbage. I'm really restraining myself, folks. I'm holding back on the swearing. There will be some in our palate cleanse. I can't help it because I didn't voice it. But Dan Goldman is a piece of garbage. He is a rotten, rotten person, and he is very comfortable with lying. This is not a new clip, but here he is talking about Donald Trump needing to be eliminated. This is the kind of rhetoric Donald Trump is talking about. The only problem that I ever have with Donald Trump when he makes these statements, he's very broad about them, and he assumes facts that are not in evidence to people on the political left. Because if you said, Dan Goldman has specifically called for me to be eliminated. The founder of the Linking Project said they need to put a bullet in me. Joe Biden called me a threat to democracy. I mean, he needs to be a little bit more specific only because they're going to go after everything he says. And he's not wrong. He's just vague. And that's enough for them to wiggle around and make lies up. Dan Goldman, in his own words. Let's do that.
Just unquestionable at this point that man cannot see public office again. He is not only unfit, he is destructive to our democracy, and he has to be eliminated.
He has to be eliminated. Now, they mean from the political sphere. I'm sure he does. But they're shading around those edges, aren't they? They're shading around the area that should be really, really safe at this point. You should be really cautious about the way you're saying this stupid stuff. It doesn't mean that there's a legal obligation to. I'm talking about being a decent human being and saying we are not trying to heat up this rhetoric. Meanwhile, you've got people like Jasmine Crockett. I saw this the other day on Tracy Bean's show, so if you guys saw that, you know what I'm talking about. Jasmine Crockett, who sounds like if you didn't have her put on the affectation of the angry black Southern woman, which she does, and it's made up. It's completely fabricated. There's a reason why we talk about Hollywood that Washington, D.C. is like Hollywood for ugly people. It's show business for ugly people. And they're getting less ugly in the era of social media and ubiquitous media. This woman doesn't talk like this. You can find videos of her before she ran for this office. And she sounded like a lady, and I couldn't have told you whether she was black or white because she's educated, like you'd expect. She's taken on this bizarre personality, this affectation, the same way that AOC has. So she plays a character as a congresswoman. And here she is talking about the domestic threat that MAGA represents. Do you know what? The word threat is very important. And we're going to get into it. It is the end around that the FBI uses to subvert the First Amendment, to get into constitutionally protected liberties and investigate you, although there is no crime. That word threat, I want you to listen to it.
Right now, I feel like MAGA in general, they are threats to us domestically. And we see it time and time again. And I think that's why you see so many national leaders, whether they're Republicans or Democrats, coming together to say there is only one person qualified to be the commander in chief, and that is Kamala Harris.
No question.
No question. No question, says Jen Psaki, the Ginger Goebbels, a propagandist in her own right. Okay? They're out there lining this up. They're telling us one simple thing over and over again. Thankfully, there are people that are pushing back and actually saying things of value. There may be a reason why CNN is probably gaining some viewership, and it might single-handedly go to this guy, Scott Jennings. We heard him at the DNC, and he was being reasonable, and you're going, oh, man, how about that? A voice of reason on CNN? Is it possible? I actually like listening to people that are on the opposition network, and it takes some balls to actually push back against those because you could probably lose your job there. My guess is, though, it actually results in better ratings because people don't want to hear one-sided nonsense. The people that do, they're probably not watching CNN. They're over there watching MSNBC. They're getting Joe Scarborough to spoon feed them like baby birds the garbage and nonsense that they don't have to refute. It doesn't have to have any bearing on reality. They'll just hear him say, Joe Biden is the best version of Joe Biden as he's ever been. He's smarter and he's quicker and he used to be a hothead and now he's cool and collected and calm. And that's why he stood like this, like the great Cornholio in front of those buildings in Philadelphia with the red lights and the Marines in the background. Yeah, because he's totally calm and collected, and he's the best version of Joe Biden. He's the tyrannical version of Joe Biden. But if you want something that sounds like a little bit more like normal people talk, how about this little pushback? Scott Jennings' little compilation. This had millions of views as of yesterday. So he's saying things that are like, they're not even inflammatory or they're not even upsetting. They're just reasonable. Scott Jennings sounds like the kind of people that you would talk to that were Republicans 25 years ago. That you would be, before Bush got into office, we would have debates about policy and whether or not this was a good idea and whether or not, it wasn't whether you were good or evil. And so this whole like whataboutism and there's bad rhetoric on both sides. Doesn't Donald Trump get crucified about saying that there were decent people down at Charlottesville that were mad about the First Amendment being infringed and that the government was coming and trying to take down statues that were our history? Like good, bad, or indifferent. We have a history in this country. Some of it is not good. It's good to remember it. You don't take down the statues and whitewash it. That's what the communists do. It's literally a move of the communists to erase the past. Hence Kamala Harris's statement about, being unburdened by what has been, by getting away from the actual past. You can erase the past and act like we've always been here. This is a communist move. This is a leftist move. And it is what has pervaded the Democrat Party. Scott Jennings is just like, dude, only one guy is the target of the violence in this country right now, of political violence, and it's really obvious.
But the rhetoric is on both sides. It's coming from the right,
it's
coming from the left.
The rhetoric, they have tried to kill this man twice, okay? He got shot in the ear, and this guy was sitting up shop outside of a golf course to try to kill him this weekend. And I know after something like this happens, it's very fashionable to, talk about rhetoric on both sides. Donald Trump is the target, okay? He's the current target, and it's happening, and it's happened again. And I just, honestly, we have to have a conversation about elections. If you lose an election, the country's not going to come to an end, okay? What I want Democrats to do, honestly, is to say, it's okay. Like, if Donald Trump wins, democracy will not end, the Constitution will not end, we're not going to live in a dictatorship, there will not be a bloodbath. All the things they say that are totally fabricated, to me, it would be a good day to stop doing that. The most important thing that could possibly happen, in my opinion, is for everybody to agree, especially Democrats, that the country is not going to be irreparably damaged if Democrats lose, that the Constitution is not going to go away, democracy is not going to come to an end, there will be no bloodbath, there will be no dictatorship on day one, which they all say all day long on this network and others.
All right, that's the key. And I want the people on the right to understand it too, mostly because I don't think we're going to see anything resembling a fair election in November. I just don't. I'm sorry, I don't want to blackpill anybody. Go out and vote, do the right things. Advocate locally, but insulate yourself as well. I talked about it at the end of yesterday's program. Go out and meet your neighbors and make sure they know who you are. Make sure they know that you're not a threat, quote unquote threat, that they're not calling the FBI on you and getting the FBI to come bang on your door the way that we're going to cover in just a moment. Go out there and insulate yourself, because elections are not going to be the opening or closing of a door that can never be changed again. This country was in bad shape. Several times. We have actually had standing armies fighting each other. And was it different? Yes. But they're still human beings. If you guys go back and listen to the program I did with my father, who's got a lot of age on me and some wisdom and some experience that I do not have, and many of you may even have, you will remember we've had political assassinations and attempts in our history. We've had leaders killed over politics. We had a president for life in FDR. And the country managed to stay together. Is it as good as it was? Probably not. Is it dramatically different than when I grew up? Absolutely. And yet, our children are able to still go out and play on the playgrounds without getting shot at. There are not bombings around every street corner the way that there were during the Troubles in Ireland. We are not at the place, and those countries have come back from that brink. So I don't want people to live in this world where it's like, if this doesn't go our way, it's all over. That doesn't mean you shouldn't have action and you shouldn't hedge against it, but fix it locally where you actually have the possibility of doing something. And the bad news is that Democrats are out there yelling at the top of their voice that Donald Trump is an existential threat to democracy. They are definitely driving the most wild rhetoric. And the reason I know that is because when we had people show up at the Capitol to protest peacefully, patriotically, or otherwise, there were no guns. There was no overthrow attempt. People on the political right that were pissed off that Donald Trump, I believe, got cheated out of the 2020 election. I think that's always been the case, but we haven't been able to prove it. And I don't have the numbers behind it. People say they do. I haven't seen it in a way that's satisfies me, and I would go to court with it. But all of that being said, the numbers are astronomically bizarre to win the least number of counties and get the most number of votes historically ever. So let's just take that at face value. What did the right do? Send a bunch of people with flagpoles that got pissed off and knocked over some barricades, and some people walked around? I get it. Some cops got beat up, and I'm not into that. And some people swung bats at cops, and I'm not into that. But you didn't have a platoon of dudes rolling up with ARs and body armor that decided to start mass executing. You didn't have what happens in third world nations when people decide to do a coup. That didn't happen. So the heated rhetoric on both sides, it's pretty damn tempered because we own most of the guns on the political right, don't we? We have most of the guns, and we have trillions of rounds of stored ammo amongst us. It's really straightforward. A year ago today, or not today, I guess a year ago last week, I just looked this up. I think it was on September 13th. It might have been on September 11th. A year ago and a week, we were talking to Proud Boys who were convicted of not doing anything violent and that are going to be in jail for 10 plus, 20 plus years. We had them call in 15-minute increments, and I interviewed all of the 5 Proud Boys that were tried and convicted in Washington, D.C., and they're still sitting in the federal penitentiary system. They're in the Bureau of Prison system, folks. I have a very nuanced understanding of what happened that day, but what I know is that it wasn't about like anger on one side equals violence, because it was pretty damn tempered. And in the meantime, this Trump pivots to incendiary claims leads to some idiot going out and trying to kill him. This is the criminal complaint. It's in the Southern District of Florida. It's the United States of America versus Ryan Wesley Routh, defendant. This is what a criminal complaint looks like. Actually, this is the affidavit that goes along with the complaint. I'll show you the complaint and the arrest warrant here. What did they do? They created this document so they can keep him in jail, and this is a preliminary. They will have a superseding indictment, I'm sure of it, with more charges. At least we hope so. Let me just cover the main basics. The FBI agent that is investigating this, because we've talked a lot about Jeffrey Veltri, and I will show you that I don't think that he is a decent person, but most of the agents that are in the Miami field office actually tend to be pretty pro-Trump from my folks that work there, and I know a fair number of them. The biggest thing is that Miami is one of the top 5 field offices in size, and it's in Florida, and you can imagine Florida is Florida, and people go there because they want to retire and they want to keep their money, and old school FBI agents in general tend to be pretty conservative. Like, that's what law and order people are about. This person who's doing it, his name is Mark Thomas. No slur against Mark Thomas that I've been able to hear. He works in the West Palm Beach Resident Agency, which is a satellite office of Miami. He's been doing the job for about 20 years. We call those guys KMA. It stands for Kiss My Ass. It's people that have the ability to retire and are about to, and they do the things they need to do. The funny thing about Kyle Seraphin being on the squad that I was on is that I was surrounded by people that were KMA. They had 20-year pins of 20-year service as FBI agents. And one of the things that I always, they said, one day you'll be, just like me, and you'll be KMA. And I said, you guys don't get it. Like, I joined this agency, KMA. I joined this agency not thinking that I was going to be able to do 20 years, because it was always questionable after the first week that I was there. And I told that to my parents. I told it to my wife. It's like, I don't know if we're going to retire from here, but we're going to give it a good shot. I want you guys to read this. This is who he was. He works on the JTTF, which means they are doing this under the terrorism task force. Okay? Now, that doesn't mean that this is necessarily a terrorism case per se. I'm just telling you he's assigned to the JTTF, because that's going to come into play later. This is the actual page, the criminal complaint. You're seeing it on the screen right now. And paragraph 2 is the affidavit. These are the charges that are being levied right now in the federal system against Ryan Wesley Routh. Possession of a firearm by a convicted felon in violation of Title 18, 922 G1. Now, we have found that this has been knocked down by courts before, so that's kind of interesting. I'm a big fan of knocking down firearm laws, but that's what's being used to hold him right now. And the second is possession and receipt of a firearm with an obliterated serial number, which is to say the serial number has been scratched out. They may be able to recover it and find out who bought it, but that's what he has. Title 18, Section 922. Again, this one is subsection K. So 922G and 922K are the only charges that are being levied against this man at the moment. And as I said, they'll take this to grand jury. They will have a superseding indictment. What they do is they say, here's some additional facts of the case. This is what we've been able to find in our investigation. But that is enough to hold him at the moment, just so you guys understand. In the meantime, they're going to have a concurrent investigation being done by Ron DeSantis. If you guys want a really good primer on the stuff we talked about yesterday and the things that I talked about on Sarah Gonzalez's show, go to Uncover DC and check this one out. This is written by Tracy Beans. We were talking about it yesterday. She and I talked after the show that she just did. And allegations of bias against the special agent in charge in the latest assassination investigation. There's Jeffrey Veltri on the screen. You guys can see him. A known Trump hater. She goes through all the receipts of it. She gives you all of the concise and the narrative that needs to be understood if you guys want to know why Jeffrey Veltri is a liability and why Ron DeSantis is doing the right thing. Here's Ron DeSantis talking about it, and we're going to get deeper into it. Let me do a quick read for my friends over at Patriot Coolers. Guys, if you want to support our program, our longest sponsor, hands down, is Patriot Coolers. It's at patriotcoolers.com. Really good website, good-looking products. They perform. That's simply it. They're in the same price categories as all the other big stuff, like you see like a Stanley or a Yeti or whatever else. Whenever I go through sporting goods stores, I always see those and I'm like, oh, that's a handsome looking thing. And then I remember, yes, I have an equal or better product at home, and it's from patriotcoolers.com. You can use my name as the promo code KYLE. Get yourself one of these. This is the 19-ounce coffee mug. If you're going to get one, get yourself a big water and get yourself one of these. This thing will hold 19 ounces of coffee. It keeps it hot or cold. In this case, I got water in it today. and it fits in your cup holder, and that's the big deal. Some of their other cups are meant for desks. Obviously, they don't travel as well in my minivan. This is the one. I fill it up before I go to church. I go to church, and when I come out of church, it's still steaming hot, and there's steam coming out of the lid. It's spill-proof in a big way. They do a really good job. So check out patriotcoolers.com, and they are, Patriot branded, Patriot thoughtfulness. They've got 13 stars and bars. They got 13 bars rather. They've got 50 stars on the bottom. Getting ahead of myself. All right. You guys get it. It's in the links in the description, so check it out and make sure you use our promo code because you'll save some money. All right, let me dig deeper into this guy here. So again, we want to do the Ron DeSantis clip. Ron DeSantis was on Jesse Waters talking about this. He says, we're going to do our own independent investigation. Again, this is a strike against the federal government. This is the way that we feel right now. And then we're going to finish up talking about the always be closing the door situation because we don't trust the federal government, and you can't. And we'll do long form on this. Here's DeSantis.
So this happened here in your state. What are you going to do about it, Governor?
Well, the state of Florida is going to do our own investigation. Clearly, there were multiple violations of Florida law. We also, I think, have an interest in vindicating the truth about where this guy came from, what his motivations were. The people of our state deserve that. I don't think it's in the best interest of this country to say that agencies like the FBI and DOJ, which are trying to prosecute Trump in South Florida, they're on appeal at the 11th Circuit trying to reinstate an indictment that had been dismissed, that they're the best people to turn around and, one, give us the truth about this defendant, but also to prosecute the case where they don't have as strong of jurisdictional claims. And so we are going to be doing our investigation. I'm going to have more to say on that very shortly about what precisely we're going to do. But I would note, Jesse, I've played golf with the president when he was in office at that course. It's a great golf course. That part of the property, the 5th green, the 6th hole, and then the 7th tee, that is right there up against the fence line. So the fence line is covered with shrubbery. So if you were just walking by, you couldn't really see inside. But that is clearly the biggest point of vulnerability on that course.
So he's talking about the actual tactical problem there, which is pretty interesting. It's nice that the governor of Florida knows it. I'm sure he's been in that area. It sounds like he's been on that golf course before. He understands why that was such a real threat. And then he goes on to say that there are some federal laws that were obviously broken in the case of the gun possession. And maybe, if they can actually tie a legitimate threat. It's going to be a lot harder because he didn't actually take any shots from what we understand. So then you've got this kind of question of what goes on. I've heard some other reporting that said that there were exactly 4 shots fired by Secret Service and then the guy ran. So that's something. But there's going to be some state laws that were broken as well. Probably carrying a rifle in that area. And so they're going to go and get into that and trespassing with a firearm. And you can get into all kinds of other things that don't exist. Listen, most crimes of violence are not federal in their nature. So we'll have to see what they come with an indictment from the grand jury for the FBI side of it. And that should actually be public. I'm sure that'll be a DOJ press release. But the second piece of it is letting the state continue and make sure this guy doesn't slip through. And they should prosecute him all the way too. Because this guy's a real problem. He apparently lives in Hawaii, but he's from North Carolina, and he has a rifle that he somehow got. Like, it's not that easy to fly with an SKS if you're a felon and you can't have it with obliterated serial numbers because it's supposed to be looked at by TSA. So he somehow managed to buy that down in Florida. It doesn't surprise me that you can buy a weapon in Florida. There's a lot of guns in Florida. But it is interesting, and that didn't get popped up anywhere. So felon with obliterated serial number, those are the two things. By the way, those hold plenty when it comes to the actual penalties, felon in possession. And what they also didn't charge him with, but they could have, just so you guys understand, every single round of ammunition can actually be charged under federal statute. Under that 922G, felon in possession, you could actually charge them for ammunition. So if he had any ammunition in the gun or on his personage magazine, if it was loaded up, like a 30 round, it was an SKS platform weapon. So they hold 30 round magazines. Yeah, you can charge him for every single round as a possession. Just saying. They can hit him with a bunch of different counts on that alone. All right, we're going to pivot into why you don't talk to the FBI. You guys don't need to be told about this, but a lot of this comes down to the world of threats. Now, this was something that popped up across social media, and this resulted in an FBI visit, and I'm going to play you the visit. And a guy named Jeremy Kaufman, who apparently runs the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire Twitter page, which is LPNH. It's at LPNH, and posted the following. It was a response to someone called Sarah Bella, who I don't know anything about, says, I disagree with the assault weapons ban, but maybe save the threatening rhetoric. And the Libertarian Party official page, or whatever you want to call it, the official Twitter handle, said anyone who murders Kamala Harris would be an American hero. So the word anyone is nonspecific. Would be is a conditional American hero. We have to break this down because it's only one sentence. Anyone who murders Kamala Harris would be an American hero. That's the claim being made by this page. And then they deleted it. Now, somebody said this, the internet's forever, and you're going to have the Secret Service appear. It turned out the FBI was the one who actually showed up. And the page response was, encouraging politicians to be shot is legal under the First Amendment. It's part of what makes this country America. It makes it great. That's kind of not true. There are some things that you can and they can't do. So there's a legal standard that we should talk about. But I'm also going to talk about threats, because that's where we were always going to go with this. Donald Trump is a genuine threat to this nation. He's a threat to our freedom. He's a threat to our democracy. He's literally a threat to everything America stands for. That's Joe Biden on Twitter with almost 14 million views, posted on June 28th, about 2 weeks before Donald Trump was shot in the head. Donald Trump is a genuine threat to the nation. He's a threat to our freedom. He's a threat to our democracy. He's literally a threat to everything America stands for. That's a pretty nasty thing to say. Also legal. Because the Supreme Court has come down and said that you have the ability to speak freely unless you meet the category of what are called true threats. And then there's also this concept of incitement. So we're going to talk about that. We've talked about true threats ad nauseum. If you guys want to watch the American Radicals podcast with my buddy Steve and my buddy Garrett, they talked about this long form, and you can get into why it's protected. Most threats are generally protected because they are not what are called true threats. But there's also a legal two-prong sort of incitement definition, and I want to talk about it. Imminent lawlessness is one of the biggest pieces. So advocacy of force, this is the definition of incitement as defined by case law. Incitement means that you are spurring someone into action. You know, like anybody who would murder Kamala Harris would be an American hero. That sounds like it could be incitement until you put it against this test. Advocacy of force or criminal activity does not receive First Amendment protections if two things are met. And these things I do not think are met here. The advocacy is directed to inciting or producing imminent lawless action. Imminent means right now. In other words, it generally has to be done in person and it has to be spurred. Like, you know, Donald Trump is in this place. Someone needs to kill him right now because this. If they said that, that would be imminent lawless action being encouraged. You are directing it. Imminent is really the operative word here. Okay. And the second thing is that it is actually likely to incite or produce such action. And I don't think you can say that a Twitter account saying something in the hypothetical and saying something in the future tense would be is likely to incite or produce such an action. This is pretty well-defined stuff, folks. But it doesn't mean that we're not dealing with ugliness, as Scott Jennings accurately said. The rhetoric on both sides, it's all going one way. It's all really, really ugly. And the other thing is this, you can say something in bad taste without it being illegal. But it turns out that we're going to send FBI agents to your door, we're being the federal government. They're going to come and pay a visit to you. And this is the visit that Jeremy Kaufman, who apparently was running that Twitter account, received. We'll break it down, and then I'll give you some takes on it and some walkaways for it.
Hey, how can I help you?
Hey there, hey Jeremy.
Yeah.
How are you?
Who are you?
I'm Agent O'Donnell with the FBI.
Can you give your full name, please?
I'm Agent O'Donnell with the FBI.
Is that sufficient to identify as the only one O'Donnell affiliated with the FBI?
In New Hampshire, yes.
Could you please state your full name, sir?
Could you please stop recording?
No. It's First Amendment right.
Okay.
What's your name, sir?
Could you stop recording, please?
Absolutely not. You can show me your name and identification, or I'm going to go back inside my house.
Okay. I don't really want to broadcast my...
Oh, this is going out right after you guys walk away.
So that's why I'm not going to...
So you can show me your name or ID, you can walk away.
We just want to talk to you about something.
I'm not going to talk to people who claim to be federal agents unless they can show me identification.
Okay, well, you see our badges.
I need to see... Is your full name on that badge?
No.
I'd like to see something with your full name or I'm not going to talk to you.
I prefer you not to broadcast it.
This will be going online as soon as you walk away.
Well, all I want to do is talk to you about a post that was made, and if you happen to be the one that made the post.
I want to talk to you about you guys coming here. say you make a salary of, I don't know what, low 100K? You guys making six figures? Factor in 50% expenses, overhead, maybe 100% expenses. Talking about burning a couple $100 an hour just here, let alone all the time you guys are spending to investigate something that you know is not against the law, right? Like you're familiar with. So then why would you come?
Because we wanted to make sure that there weren't any.
No, you're coming because you're part of a regime that does this kind of thing when you know laws aren't being broken, and that's an embarrassment, man. Didn't you guys read the Constitution? Do you not believe in America? Like, how do you do your jobs and go home?
We appreciate it.
You're walking away. Because nothing we did is against the law, and you guys are fuckheads that try to act like bullies. And I hope you go home and are embarrassed. You can't even say your name on camera because you know that what you're doing is embarrassing. You know Americans that believe in the Constitution think you're laughable. And you go home and you think about what you did today. Go home and think about it, you cowards. Drive away. Drive away.
Thank you for your time.
You're not welcome. You should be embarrassed. Embarrassing. You guys are embarrassing.
There you go. Look, the rule is if your name is not Jeremy, if you're not Jeremy Kaufman and you don't know how to explicitly stay within the boundaries of what you're going to say, maybe you don't do that. This is my general reaction. This is where you should probably try to stay when the FBI comes and knocks on your door.
A, B, C. A always be B, C closing. Always be closing. Always be closing.
The door. Always be closing the door. Don't be talking to these guys. It's not going to help you, okay? Yeah, he did fine. He didn't say anything that he shouldn't say. He didn't give away any information. He didn't admit to anything. That's fine. And he asked for the stuff he wanted. Most of you are not prepared to be doing that. Let's be real. You're going to invite them in. So don't do that. Just be closing the door. Just ignore your instinct. And don't talk to the FBI. There's no upside to it. The reason that he was there was because of that post we talked about that I showed you. Okay, here it is again. That's the reason. And then the question came out, well, were these guys even FBI agents? Yeah, of course they were. Now he said, you heard the guy that was speaking, the senior agent. He said, I'm Agent O'Donnell. And he said, is that sufficient to identify you? And he said, in New Hampshire, yes. And he's right. It is. That's Scott O'Donnell. And he spoke to the Rotary Club of Bedford, New Hampshire, service above self. There's a picture of him right there giving a talk about the FBI in front of a Rotary Club. So Scott O'Donnell is a unique modifier. He's also one of the private sector engagement people for the Boston field office. He apparently, and if my numbers check, he may have actually been the guy who is the SSRA and has been there since like 2013. I'm still going to confirm that. The other guy is new. Okay, he's relatively new to the Bureau, and I didn't get a name on him. But you notice he deferred. All I'm saying is if you're not prepared to engage the way that Jeremy did, maybe you keep it down. Now, here's some things I'm going to give you, free lessons, because these are important. These guys are showing up because of a threat, most likely came in via eGuardian. eGuardian is the system that the FBI uses to take in complaints, and then they get farmed out to what's called the Guardian Squad, or maybe if you're in an RA like these guys, a resident agency, you're going to get information and it just says go out and interview this person or take logical investigative steps. The problem is there's nothing logical about going and knocking on the door of a guy who made a First Amendment protected activity that didn't fit the two-pronged incitement or the definition of true threats. The other question was, people said online, well, is it possible that these guys are fakes? Look at how they're dressed. The answer is, that's how they're dressed. That's how FBI agents dress. They could dress in a t-shirt like me. It would be fine. They didn't have government plates. The FBI doesn't drive vehicles with government plates. They drive a Dodge just like that. They drive a Dodge. They drive a Chevy. They got a Chevy Malibu, or they got a Dodge Charger, or they got a Challenger, or they got one of these little guys. I can't remember what these are called. What was that? You guys tell me what that SUV is. I forget right now. But it's got state plates. That's what they drive in. They're not going to be GS plates. They're not going to be government plates. They're going to be whatever the state is because they try to blend in. And you see how well these guys blend in. Apparently they're doing the gray man tactical plaid shirt, open carrying on a badge. And yes, the FBI badge is tiny. And yes, you can buy a fake version of it, but it won't look the same. I've looked. We tried to do them for some movie props. But this is how the FBI is going to come to your door. And they're there because of threats. They're there because they want to talk about you being involved in the threat landscape. The same thing, that internal, that external threat that Jasmine Crockett talked about. They got a real problem with you having freedom of speech. And what this does is it allows them to go into not the criminal side, because there is no criminal thing. We talked about it's not a true threat. It's not incitement. They open it up under the counterterrorism side. Now, maybe these guys are just following down a lead and they're going to check it. But I'll tell you how I would have handled that, because I already know. Because I've gotten these calls and I've gotten these allegations. I got one, Durango. Thank you. It's a Dodge Durango. I used to drive one of those things, so I should recognize it. I got this call. It's like, hey, this dude said, he's coming for the local mayor. And he posted it on social media on Facebook. So they sent me a phone number, a workup on it. One of our intelligence analysts did all the background. They sent over a little package and here's this person. He's made some threats on social media. I read the threats and I'm like, that's not really a threat. I'm coming for the mayor. Okay, fine. I called the guy up on a Saturday and I was like, hey, my name's Kyle Seraphin. I'm with the FBI. You don't have to talk to me, but listen, I'm calling you because there was a post made on social media saying that you're coming for the mayor. Can you give me any context to that if you'd like to? And the guy was like, yeah, I'm going to come for his job. I'm going to run for mayor. I was like, thanks so much. Have a great day. The end. Closed out the lead. No investigation opened. Or you decide to go out there and harass the person and intimidate them in person. And you open up a counterterrorism investigation into them, which doesn't rely on criminal allegations. And that's the biggest problem. This is why I know this is a First Amendment violation, because there is absolutely no reason to investigate somebody. You cannot open an investigation based on First Amendment claims alone. First Amendment protected liberties, and they were there, and they are doing and trying to conduct a knock and talk, and they're not honest, and they're ashamed, and they walked away with their tails tucked in. They didn't show their credentials, which they have. By the way, if you are dealing with the FBI and you ask to see their credentials, you can ask for a business card, ask what field office they are out of, and they should give those things to you. That's not a big deal. I used to hand out my business card like candy. It doesn't matter. I had weirdo people on the Indian reservation calling me at all hours, including people that I were looking for. I left a business card for a guy that I wanted to arrest, and he called me up the next day, and he's like, yo, what's up? And I said, I don't know who this is. I was like, I give out a lot of business cards. Who are you, and why do you want to talk to me? And he's like, oh, you're looking for me. And I was like, I don't think so. And he was like, yeah, you're going to arrest me. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I am. Yeah, when do you want to do that? That's what you do. You just hand out the business card. Who cares? The government pays for the cell phone bill. That's your job. By the way, he talks about their income. A GS-13. So that was my rank, or my pay grade when I left. A GS-13-1, an entry-level GS-13. That's 5 years in the FBI as an agent. That's when you're a tenured brick agent. They make $129,000 a year in New Hampshire, minimum. And if they're up at the GS-13/10, so the step 10, it's $168,000 a year. That doesn't include benefits. That's just what they're getting paid for straight salary. So they are making a six-figure salary. It only takes about 2-3 years inside the FBI before you're making a six-figure salary. Whatever you see on the GS scale, it starts at 10, it goes to 13. They get 25% more for what's called law enforcement availability pay, or AVP. And that's just how it works. So they're getting paid really well. And that's why they're ashamed, because someone told them to go do something they should have said, no, I'm not going to do that, or I'm going to make a phone call, or I'm going to shoot the guy an email. You understand what Steve Friend and Garrett and I gave up? It was a good paying job that's actually really fun a lot of the time when they don't ask you to do something illegal, immoral, or unethical. But if they do ask you to do that, it is your duty to say no. And if that means you lose your job, so be it. You only get to sell your honor and your integrity once. And my boss, who probably had the same amount of seniority as this guy and was in the same role, what's called the SSRA, the Senior Supervisory Resident Agent, he told me he couldn't stand up with me because he had a mortgage, an alimony, and he was a year or two away from retirement. And then the pension pays you out. So he couldn't do it. And he was disappointed. And I felt bad for the guy. I feel bad for this guy. Not bad enough to not tell you his name. His name's Scott O'Donnell. That's fine. But I feel bad for them because they realize that their honor is only worth like $160,000 a year. Isn't that a shame to find out in your late 40s or early 50s that that's what your honor is worth? That's not even that much money. I mean, it is, but it's not, right? And getting paid out for life, and you're going to take that blood money, and then you're going to go out there and you're going to be mad at Kyle Seraphin because he's saying the truth. Screw you. Do you know who else was behind this? This is 100% a Democrat playbook. I've got a few more videos. I'm not gonna stick within the hour because this is worth talking about. Here's Tim Walz. He's running for vice president. He doesn't think you have a freedom of speech.
I think we need to push back on this. There's no guarantee to free speech on misinformation or hate speech, and especially around our democracy.
Oh, really? Okay, cool. You know what? I wonder where you get that idea. Oh, maybe it's because you get it from a lifelong time of being a Democrat. Here's Hillary Clinton saying the same thing. Americans need to be censored, and they might need criminal charges.
And boosting Trump back in 2016. But I also think there are Americans who are engaged in this kind of propaganda. And whether they should be civilly or even in some cases criminally charged is something that would be a better deterrence because then boosting Trump back.
I'm sorry, a criminal charge or a civil charge? You think they should be hit with those kind of things? Do you think Joe Biden should be too? Maybe it's because they're used to talking to people like toddlers. Here's a little video. I can't prove it because it's too far away, but it kind of looks like Tim Walz's wife. It's at some sort of educators conference. And I guess that's what you do when you're a grown-up that like votes for the Democrat Party, that you have the mind of a toddler. So you need to do call and response like it's kindergarten. I would have hated this in kindergarten. I was already too smart for it. I know my kids are too smart for it right now to do call and response like this. They would despise it. Apparently grown adults that want to be in the Democrat Party love it. So here's a taste.
Go. Mr. Trump, Mr. Vance, please mind your own business. Oh my God, that was great. I got some gestures and everything in it. Let's just do it one more time. One more time. It was so good. Ready? Mr. Trump, Mr. Vance, please mind your own business.
Just grow the hell up, you weirdos. This leads me to my last little story that I want to talk down on or to cover down on. And this is ABC News because it's happening again. They love it. They can't help themselves. They're going to go out there and try to intimidate people that say one thing. By the way, if you're a representative from a political party, you should be a sim. So there should have been all kinds of things going out there. This guy, Jeremy Kaufman, is associated with the Libertarian Party. So that should have been a sim before they went out and did the knock and talk. They were already over their skis. They probably violated DOJ policy doing this. This is ABC News saying that Facebook owner Meta, that's the big company that owns it, bans Russian state media outlets over quote-unquote foreign interference at the behest of the FBI and the State Department and DOJ. Right? They're in it again. Meta is banning Russian state media organizations from their social media platforms, alleging the outlets use deceptive tactics to amplify Moscow's propaganda. We can't have that. It's banning them because it's amplifying propaganda. Of course, the Kremlin disagrees with it, but so should Americans. The company, which owns Facebook, WhatsApp, and Instagram, said late Monday it'll roll out the ban over the next few days in an escalation of its efforts to counter Russian covert influence operations. It turns out it's not a covert operation when the name of your organization is Russia Today. I don't go there for my news, but why should you be telling Americans what they can and can't see? Meanwhile, this guy, Donald Trump, is a genuine threat to this nation. He's a threat to our freedom. You know what one of those freedoms are? The freedom of speech, the freedom of assembly, the freedom of religion. You guys are prosecuting the FACE Act and going after like 89-year-old Holocaust survivors who are praying outside of abortion clinics. Maybe spare me, Joe Biden. Maybe consider that you guys are the biggest propagandists, that the person who used to do propaganda from the pulpit, because it is a secular religion, the pulpit, that Peppermint Patty character, that Ginger Goebbels, is now doing an MSNBC show where she does conversations with complete partisan hacks and says this.
Right now, I feel like MAGA in general, they are threats to us domestically. And we see it time and time again. And I think that's why you see so many national leaders, whether they're Republicans or Democrats, coming together to say there is only one person qualified to be the commander in chief, and that is Kamala Harris.
Nope. Yeah, you're absolutely right. You see who's in the background there? George Conway. You want to talk about propaganda operations. Very interesting. It keeps going on like this, folks. It's ugly and it's stupid. It's kind of pathetic. It makes me sad, but it is what it is. You know what doesn't make me sad? Mad Hat Jerky. If you guys want to get a snack, you're having a rough day, you need some protein to keep yourself going, 20% off by using the promo code KYLE at matthatjerky.com/Kyle. If they give you a better code, make sure you go to our website still. You can click through it in the show notes, matthatjerky.com/Kyle. Promo code KYLE for 20% off. That's one of the $5 stays in your pocket. Get yourself the black truffle. You will not look back. Or get yourself the original and do it in the USDA Prime. It's like $1 more per bag, but it's totally worth it, especially because it's only 80 cents per bag more if you use our promo code. Do that game. All right, I've got a palate cleanser for you. I will not leave you feeling gross. Before you do, hear this. Make sure you guys are supporting us over at Locals. If you want to be, you can be a free member. Just go to kyleserafin.com. It'll take you to Locals. It'll take us to the splash page. You can join or not. You can join the community, and you can do it right through the Rumble app, by the way. You can go and join through there. You got to probably go through the webpage. So get on your computer at some point in time, hit kyleserafin.com, and then join us over there. Be one of our big supporters. Whether it's paid or unpaid, you'll still be part of the community, and we appreciate all of you. There's this guy. It's called Chef Reactions. He's a TikToker, but he also pops some stuff up on Twitter and some, Instagram and some other things. And I don't know why I really like his humor, and this has absolutely nothing to do with politics, but it's just funny. I just get this kind of thing. Maybe that's why I get along with like Jewish guys from New York. That's what he kind of reminds me of, like sort of that Northeastern Jewish dry humor. It's a thing. Here's this guy reacting to women making these horrific dishes that make you want to puke when you see them made. And he's an actual chef with some actual training. His name is not disclosed. I went looking for it and I couldn't find it. So I'm just sharing this with you because I think it's funny. And I like the way that it's the dry humor that's going to get us through. And it's a reminder that like people are still eating. People are still going out there in the world. People are still making videos about horrific ideas that they have for recipes. It's not all terrible and bad as long as we have a sense of humor about it and we can still make these jokes without the FBI showing up at our door most of the time. It's going to be okay. That's why I do these palate cleanses, by the way. All right. Good little taste of this guy. It makes me laugh.
Okay. An industrial-sized can of cranberry sauce right off the Cisco truck. Cisco, by the way, is a food service provider, not the guy who sang Thong Song.
That's just 3 packages of my Hillshire Farm Little Smokies.
Little Smokies. The wettest one she could find, too, apparently.
Onion soup mix.
Onion soup mix.
4 packets.
4 packets. Is that going to be enough? That looks like dirt.
Right on top of the Little Smokies.
Yeah, right on top.
Now I've got my fresh rosemary.
Oh, actual dirt. That's good.
These sprigs directly into my
Directly in there. You want to make sure you get some terra firma directly in there as well. There you go. Yeah, there it is. That's good.
Spread it out a little bit more.
Spread it out a little bit more. Why not? Live a little.
And that was my 6-pound
barrel
of ocean spray jelly cranberry sauce.
Okay.
All right, we've just got one more ingredient.
One more ingredient.
Boxes of beef broth.
Oh yeah, okay. That sounds like the first piss after a night of drinking.
I'm just going to pour all of that in here.
Yeah.
And on top, I'm just going to add a little bit of our bacon bits.
Little bacon bits.
Just to give this a little bit more flavor.
For some flavor and some texture, obviously.
I'm just going to put this in the oven at
Look at that fucking thing jiggle, huh?
Alrighty, I had this in the oven for 1 hour.
That looks
and what I'm
terrible.
going to start doing now is breaking up my jelly.
Oh my god.
Now, if you wanted this to be a little bit of a thicker sauce, you could always add more cranberry.
Like, is this a little smoky soup?
It would be so tasty with the taste of those little smokies with that cranberry sauce.
They're floating. They're like turds floating.
It smells amazing. I wish you could smell this
I don't.
through your screen where you're watching. Because just that Lipton onion soup mix mixed with this rosemary and our little smokies.
I'm mesmerized by the movement of this. Like, is it a soup? Is it like, what the fuck is going on here? You need a spork to eat this.
Alright.
A ladle.
Fresh from the oven.
Fresh from the oven. Look at that.
Delicious, festive appetizer. It's perfect with our sports seasons coming up.
Sports seasons. Go local sports organization.
This one, because I guarantee you everyone's
She's
gonna
eating it with a fork too. This is a 0.375 out of 10. I'm obviously trying.
It's so gross. I have no idea what's wrong with that poor lady and why she thought that made a video that anybody would watch, but oh my God. Anyway, that was my interior monologue as well. When I listened to him say it, I was like, that's exactly the thoughts I have. That's why I shared it with you guys. It even sounds ridiculous. You don't even have to visually see it. So thanks for watching on that. All right, we got a 5-star review today coming in from Killer MJ. I don't know what Killer MJ. Some of you guys have some really weird names and handles. They're not easily discernible. Says, thanks, 5 stars. I appreciate the forthrightness of your shows. Thank you for your continued service to the USA. I listen to your show every day. I appreciate that. Thanks so much. I appreciate your calm and matter-of-fact delivery. I've learned so much and enjoy passing your information on to friends and family. That's what we're all about here, radicalizing your coworkers and your family members. Thanks for listening. Keep up the great work. And all of God's blessing to you and yours. Oh, Rochelle Johnson. Rochelle, like, why do you have Killer MJ? What is going on with these screen names, you all? In any case, that didn't cleanse your actual palate. That cleansed your mental palate to remind you that we've got some really weirdos out there that are doing stuff like making jelly, 6-pound jelly soups. They're not paying attention to politics. So go out there and meet those people that live next door to you and let them know, hey, it's going to be okay. I'm still a human being. You're still a human being. We're all still neighbors. We're all still Americans. Like Scott Jennings says, it doesn't end simply because one person or another person is canceled. And apparently I may have read that review twice. So what? I like it. It's a nice one. Thanks, Rochelle, for writing it. Okay, folks, we'll see you guys again tomorrow. A weird Wednesday pending. It's already been a weird week, so I can only imagine it gets stranger. God bless all of you. Go take a moment, meet those folks, bring some blessings to your neighbors, your friends, your coworkers, radicalize them, and share the Kyle Seraphin Show. Until then, we'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks for listening to the Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram @Kyle Seraphin.